Hello, today we'll be starting the topic Western political thought. In this, we will be discussing Plato. In this video, we will understand Plato and his theories. So, who is Plato? He is a philosopher who lived in Athens during 427 to 347 BC. He was a student of Socrates and he is called as the first political philosopher. In this video, we'll understand what are his theories and why is he called as first political philosopher. So, before studying any thinker, you need to understand their context. Why are they saying what they are saying? What are the influences on a particular philosopher? What is the context in which they are living? And what are the problems that they are trying to address? So, in Plato's time, when he was living in Athens, there was a war that was happening against Sparta in which Athens lost badly. This war is called Peloponnesian War, and this war lasted for 28 years, and when the war ended, Athens was left in shambles. The second thing that was happening during Plato's time was there was a political discord in Athens. There was class conflict happening between poor and rich. There were power struggles happening, and people were generally self interested. You would have also read that sophists of that time were dominating the political scene, where they were teaching people how to win arguments, or how to you know keep their self interest above everything else. Third important thing that happened during Plato's time was there was a democratic regime that actually executed Socrates, gave him hemlock because of the questions he was asking around. He was uh, accused of sedition and corrupting the youth of Athens. So, all these things happened during Plato's time. So, Plato was the problem that was in front of Plato was the class struggle that was happening. There was political discord, people were fighting against each other. So, he wanted to find a solution to these problems. Now, one thing that I would like you to remember here is what Plato is facing or seeing during his time is nothing new. This is something that happens everywhere across space and time. But every political thinker is going to understand it differently, frame the problem differently, and even offer a solution that is going to be different from others. So we need to understand that why Plato gave the solution he gave. What is the basis of political theory? What are the assumptions he made? What are the solutions he thought would work? So let's look ahead. So, what are the influences on Plato? This is also important. Whenever you study a political philosopher, look at the persons or other thinkers that are influencing him or her. So, on Plato, the predominant influence was that of Socrates. His idea about knowledge and importance of philosophy, serving for public good or public interest, and especially Socratic method of dialectics. Now, what is dialectics? It is something that is common in India, ancient India also. It's called Tark Vitark. So, what happens? Somebody makes an argument X. To negate that argument, another argument is made Y. Now, to negate this, another argument is made, that is Z. So forth and so on. Another argument made A that negates Z. So you reach a point till you are not able to negate an argument. If an argument is made or a point is reached where you cannot negate it any further, or you cannot falsify it any further, or you cannot produce a counter to it any further, then that is taken as the truth, or that is accepted as knowledge. So Plato was very influenced by this method of dialectics to arrive at what is knowledge or what is truth. Another influence was Heraclitus, who his idea change is the essence of universe. His quote came in one of the recent essay paper also, that no man can step in the same river twice because he is not the same man and it is not the same river. So His ideas on that the world that we live in is constantly changing influenced Plato. Another influence on Plato was Pythagoras. His idea that universe is based on some mathematical and logical principles and society must follow same. This idea is very important because Plato tries to create such logical principles on which state can be built upon or which the state must follow. It can be seen in his concept of ideal state. Another thinker of his time who influenced him was Parmenides. His idea that permanence of ideas in a continuously changing world. Even though our world is continuously changing, the physical or the tangible world is continuously changing, but there is some aspect of reality, some ideas that are immutable. That is, they do not change with space and time, they are universal, they are true today, they were true yesterday, and they will be true tomorrow as well. So, this idea was borrowed from here. So, these were the important influences on Plato. Till now, no question has been asked on this aspect, but a 10 to 15 marker can be asked from this section asking who influenced Plato. So when you will have to then you will have to mention the names as well as the idea that influenced Plato, and where can you see that idea, in which theory of Plato can you see those ideas. Moving ahead, our main concern for political Western political thought is Plato's work, The Republic. Remember, Plato has written number of works, but what is concerning us, or what is important for us from exams point of view, is this, The Republic. In this work, he actually advocates or he propounds his political philosophy. Socrates is the main character in this work, where through Socrates, Plato is trying to define what is justice, how to create a ideal state, what should be the principles that should govern it. The book is primarily a dialogue between various characters to arrive at the ideal and universal conception of justice. In this book, Plato not only defines what is ideal justice, what does ideal definition of justice is, but he also looks at other definitions of justice as well, and he tries to explain why they are not universal or why they are not suitable definitions of justice. Again, a question can be asked, till now it has not been, but a question can be asked, that what are different conceptions of justice that Plato explored in his work Republic. I am not looking at this aspect in this video, I am just focusing on the conception given by Plato. A different video can be made or will be made on this aspect, but if you are preparing for exam, do pay attention to this aspect as well. Other theories also are illustrated by Plato in this work. Moving ahead, theory of form. This is the foundation of Plato's political philosophy. What do I mean by this? That how Plato understands politics or human life or state is through his understanding of form. It is center or foundation of his political thought. What is form? Form is ideal of something. It includes physical and ethical dimension. That is an important point. Ideal and transcendental reality, a perfect and unchanging reality. Just imagine there's a chair in front of you, or one you are currently sitting on. Now it is taken some form. According to Plato, there is an ideal form of chair that exists, that does not change, that represents the ideal way a chair should be. And your chair is just one representation of that ideal form. So he says that way everything in the world, whether it's your chair, it's your table, or human beings, or trees, everything around you is just one representation of an ideal form or an ideal reality. The one we are living in is just a representation. Some students have difficulty understanding this concept. It is quite understandable. Why? Because it is a difficult or convoluted concept. But if you have to understand it, I'll give you example of dualism. Plato's theory of form is also kind of dualism. You would have read about Shankaracharya or Ramanuja. When Shankaracharya says Advait, that the Brahma and Atma are one and the same thing, or Ramanuja says Vishisht Advaita, that the Atma is related to Brahma, but there is a difference. So that is somewhat what Plato is saying, Vishisht Advaita, that there is an ideal form. He does not give a name to that ideal form. I'll tell you later. But there's the reality that we live in is a copy or a representation of that ideal world. So that is his theory of form. In this theory of form, he builds further, and then he says there's good. It's a G, it's good with a capital G. That is form of all forms, the ultimate form. It means even the ideal world that there is, the one we live in is a copy or a representation of an ideal world. Now within ideal world also there is this concept of good, that is form of all forms. It means the principle that is governing that ideal world. It's a cosmic principle, physical and ethical dimensions. If you have to compare it with Indian political thought, we have a similar concept called Rita. Rit basically means order, the cosmic order that governs how the universe should behave, how individuals should behave, how society. It is more encompassing. But what Plato is saying is about good that is only existent in the ideal world. It is a form of all forms. It is the most fundamental, perfect, and unchanging knowledge, giving meaning and purpose. It can be acquired through dialectics, however appears as a flash after years of training. So Plato is saying that good is something that cannot be known by everyone. One, you have to be trained for it in dialectics, that you keep looking at arguments and counter arguments and you keep trying to negate or falsify what you know. When you keep asking questions, you will probably arrive at the truth. But that arrival at the truth will not be as something done through practice, but it would be like a flash. It would a flash of knowledge, something like enlightenment. It would happen that you will understand the meaning of, you will be able to conceptualize an ideal world, understand the principle that governs it. He gives allegory of cave. Sun represents good. Till now a question has not been asked on this, but again this is important from exams point of view. A question has been asked on theory of form, but a UPSC can ask a question where you have to explain his theory of form using this allegory, or a short note can come on this itself. Another video will be made on this concept. Another important and point to consider here is that this theory is not very empirical, in the sense there's an element of mysticism or metaphysics. Otherworldliness is there in this theory. It is not something that our eyes, ears, or we can just gain knowledge of it. There's some flash, as you've read, flash that comes after years of training. So there's this element of mysticism in his theory. Now in his theory of form, Plato also makes a distinction between the real world, the world of becoming, and the world of being, the ideal world. He says the real world or the world of becoming is an empirical world of sensation, world of appearances. It is continuously changing. That is the world we experience. So if you are, the chair that you are sitting on currently was once upon a time wood, then it was carved out into a chair, then perhaps after some time it will, break down, it will decay. So it is continuously changing. But in the world of being, the ideal world, it's a non empirical, non sensory world. There's perfect stability. The ideal form remains the way it is, it's immutable. There is no consistent flux or change that happens there. Now, this theory is the basis of how he understands justice, how he understands ideal state, and why he gives other theories, or his other political thought is based on his this understanding. Theory of form is basically his foundation. His It shows how he's looking at the world. So he says, the world is continuously changing, but there is this ideal world that does not change, that does not get disturbed. So he wants to create a state that is ideal in that manner, that does not change or is not consistently in a flux, that follows some cosmic principle, or has physical ethical dimensions. It is based on his idea of good, it is perfect, and there is meaning, there is purpose in it. Now let us look at his theory of justice. In his theory of justice, he defines justice as a virtue, or rather a virtue of virtues. Understand that in Plato's understanding, virtue means knowledge. It is same thing as knowledge. So justice would essentially here mean then virtue, like justice is perfect knowledge. Just if there's state in ideal state, sorry, there's justice in ideal state, it means there is perfect knowledge. The state is being run based on perfect knowledge or truth. Virtue is identical to knowledge. It is the greatest good that can be achieved by individual and political community. Here the good means goal of human life, or a state or a society. So justice is the ultimate or the greatest good that can be achieved by an individual and political community. Here you have to focus that justice is just not for state. Justice is not a principle to be followed by state only, it is something that has to be followed by the individual also. So for Plato, the principle of justice is essential at state level and also at individual level. We will look at this aspect later. And now, what is justice? It is virtue of virtues, it is the perfect knowledge of justice, would mean harmony within the society and the individual. So, Plato is living in Athens that is marred by political conflict, or that is, disturbed by fights between various classes. So he wants to create justice in that state. Justice would mean there is harmony between different classes, there's harmony within the society. That harmony can only come if individuals are also in harmony with themselves. So you see, the principle of justice is universal in this way, that it not only applies to the state or the political community or the collective, but it is also applicable to the individual. And it makes sense also. Individuals who are disturbed otherwise cannot create a harmonious society. So individuals have to be at harmony with what they have in life, or who they are, or where they are placed, for society to be in harmony at large. How to achieve this justice? Everyone performs the role that they are most suited for. That is, if everyone is doing what they are most suited for or what they are most capable of, then it would lead to harmony in society. For simple reason, if I am doing what I like and the other person is doing what they like, then there's no reason for us to conflict over anything. We only have conflict because the other person is doing something that I want to do, or the other person has resources that I want, or vice versa. So Plato is trying to remove that and say everyone performs the role they are most suited for. In this way, he suggests a threefold functional division of classes in society. based on what everyone is suited for. So he has to identify that, how do you identify people what they are most suited for, and that would result into a threefold functional division of classes. He identifies three functions that are crucial or that are predominant or essential in any society. What is this threefold division? Philosopher king, guardians, and producer class or artisans. And what is the basis of this division? Virtue specific to each class. This is important. Now, he has said that, everybody performs the role what they are suited for. But how do you decide who is suited for which role? So, Plato says, well, you decide it based on their virtue. So, the philosopher king, who is the ruler, would have the virtue of wisdom dominating in him. The guardians would have the virtue of courage dominating in them. And the producer or the artisans class would have the virtue of temperance. Their functions would be rulership, formulation and implementation of policies, administration, etc. Guardians will perform military function and security of the state, and the producer class would have an economic function. They would provide goods and services in the society. However, the question comes, how do you convince people that they have the virtue of wisdom, or they have the virtue of courage, or they have the virtue of temperance? So, in that way, there's a challenge to this theory of justice. Another paradox is that who are philosophers, who love knowledge, who have a deep love for knowledge. Now, they do not want to rule, they want to probably just pursue philosophy. So, Plato also identifies this as a challenge. Another is, unfortunately for Plato, a challenge that even if somebody is a philosopher, they can turn corrupt and start ruling for their own self interest. That despite somebody being a philosopher and having love for knowledge, love for truth, can turn into a corrupt individual and start ruling to pursue their own agenda. Now, Plato tries to find solution for these challenges. In pursuit of these solutions, he gives further theories and ideas. Now, let us look at these. In theory of education, he says, see, how do you first in this? He's trying to use a theory of education first to identify philosopher kings, and second, how to divide society into three functional classes. So, important points about his theory of education are, anyone, regardless of class or sex, can become ruler if they can acquire the philosophical knowledge. This is a very revolutionary or radical idea for that period of time. Second, state controlled education system. It also, that it's through state controlled education system you can actually control what you are teaching to students, and also that everyone gets in education. Third, education system to filter out philosophers. So you are identifying your philosopher king through a very uh, rigorous process. And lastly, balance between individual needs and social requirements. So his theory of education is all not only looking at what an individual needs to learn to run society, but also what is socially required. So you need to give education that fulfills the needs of individual, but also is good for society, is also fulfilling the needs of society. So in this he gives three stages. In the first stage of elementary education, which everybody will receive, people learn basic skills, reading, writing, etc. Another important point is Plato is against poetry, because Plato believes poetry, especially of Homer at that time, was teaching not, you can say, something which is not ethical. Plato is classist in that way. He said art should reflect harmony, but the poetry of the time was not teaching harmony, or rather, it was teaching about ideas or passions that Plato did not approve of. After this stage of elementary education, it will be from around 6 to 15 years of age. He says that the first filtration process will be carried out where artisans will be filtered out. That is, till 15 everybody is going to get this education, and then you will see whether, if students, they are suitable for further education. Students who are not suitable, or you think are, only capable of this much education, or they have uh, reached their mental capability in learning all this, they will be filtered out and they are sent to work as artisan or the producer class. In the second stage, he is teaching mathematical and geometrical study. In this, the guardian class remains. 3 year military training is given to all, training in generalized and abstract truths. So, concepts like what is justice, what is knowledge, what is truth, a very general understanding of concepts is given. It is abstract knowledge. It is, you're just making students aware about different ways of thinking and different concepts that are there. After this, second filtration process happens where guardians are filtered out. So you identify students who have undergone military training, who have learnt about general concepts but are not suitable for further education, so you filter them out, and then they become the guardian class, or the who are performing the military function. In the final stage, he talks about study in dialectics, knowledge of absolute truths. In this, they will learn about good. Here they are learning about the ideal world or form. Here they will learn about what is good. Good, and the G is capital here. His theory of good. Ethical principles, knowledge of good, the cosmic principle. And people in this final stage are the ones who will become philosopher kings. Now, if you look at this theory of education, if you evaluate it, so you see the universal education scheme, first thinker perhaps providing education to women. First thinker who is actually giving equal opportunity of education, and as a corollary of that, the opportunity to become a ruler. But there are other issues. It is undemocratic. More focus on guardian and philosopher class, ignoring producer class. So the artisans who are filtered out after the first filtration process only are denied of that opportunity to learn those mathematical or geometrical study or in-depth knowledge or knowledge of abstract concepts. Third, individual is suppressed under the weight of collective people to fit into ready-made classes. Now, what is happening through his theory of education is that he has already identified what people can be. They can only be three things. They can either be a producer class, they can be a guardian class, or philosopher king. Three roles that he has identified, and everybody has to fit into those ready made classes. So, if somebody can be creative, it is very much possible that somebody can be a guardian also, and also has some creative streak in them where they want to probably paint or do some other thing. There is no opportunity for that for them in this scheme of things. So Plato has already created a structure where three, boxes are there, and everybody has to fit into these three boxes. So what does the individual want, or you know, or what the individual is capable of? They are not even given that opportunity to explore. So in this way, the individual is suppressed under the weight of collective. He has identified this is what a state should look like for harmony to be there. Everybody is performing what they are most capable of. People can be only be capable of three things. They can be producer, they can be guardian, or they can be a ruler. So and everybody has to choose one of these. So this way, the individual freedom or individual development is sacrificed. Lastly, removed from practical knowledge of administration and political life with focus on abstract ideas. Now the philosopher king would have idea of good with capital G. He will know the cosmic principle, he will know the ideal form of justice, etc., etc. But To run a state, ideal or not ideal, the philosopher king needs to know the principles of administration. How do you make policies? How do you implement policies? If there are issues, how do you go around solving them? So, those aspects are glaringly missing in his theory of education. Those are not the criteria on which Plato is choosing his philosopher king. So, this is another gap in his theory of education. Another idea, communism of family and property. So, we had three challenges in our theory of justice. One is, how do you segregate people into three classes, and how do you identify a philosopher king? That was through theory of education. Now, communism of family and property is for the most critical part of the theory, that is, how do you ensure that the philosopher king that has been chosen or that has acquired the knowledge does not become a corrupt ruler, does not rule for his own or her own self interest. Now, for that, Plato introduces a communism of family and property. What is the aim of this? To prevent coup and degradation of philosopher king. So, through his theory of communism and of family and property, Plato is aiming that the philosopher king does not get degraded into a self-interested ruler, one, and two, he ensures that nobody else is also interested in challenging or becoming philosopher king to take his powers. People generally like to take power or money or resources for their family or to acquire wealth. But Plato has removed both of these things from the equation. Removing objects of desire through ascetic communication of family and property, not allowed to own property or have families. Regulation of mating, children will be held in common, identify state as family. So he has created this where you don't have family, you don't have property, whatever you are doing for the state. State is your family. So even if you want to rule for self-interest or you want to do something for yourself or your extended this thing, the state is your family, so you will end up doing it for state itself. You will identify as a member of state. So you become a part of state or whose whole is state. So you do not have an identity that is separate from state. So this way you do not have an incentive to revolt or to get degraded into a corrupt person. But this idea has been critiqued. First, the and foremost critique is by Aristotle. He says these are time-tested institutions. Family and property have their own merits and they provide stability and motivation. Because in current times you would have seen tragedy of commons. Everyone's property is nobody's responsibility. So it will actually lead to that according to Aristotle. And the eugenics principle that Plato is saying that you will regulate mating, it has totalitarian tendencies also. Now moving on to his final idea, the noble lie, myth of metals. Now he has said that society would be divided into three classes. One would be artisans, guardians and rulers. But why should people follow it? What if somebody wants to further continue or be a producer also and be a guardian also? How do you convince people to follow this threefold division? For that, Plato says that there should be a noble lie or a myth of metals that can be propagated to convince people that everybody is born with a metal dominating their soul. Philosophers are born with gold dominating their soul, guardians with silver, and artisans with bronze or brass and copper. So, if you tell people that why somebody is in guardian class or why somebody is a philosopher king, you tell them because they are born with gold dominating their soul or silver dominating. But if you see, this has tendencies like the Indian caste system. If this system is abused and misused, it will actually result into a very indian rigid Indian caste system type of structure, where what you receive, or your soul would be determined on hereditary basis. Your occupation would also probably turn into something defined by your genes, or your inheritance. So these are the three theories that he has given. Now, based on this, he gives his theory of ideal state. What is ideal state according to Plato? It is the one that is ruled by philosopher king. It is based on principle of justice. Justice means harmony between various sections of society, or various classes of society, and within individual. And the society achieves harmony through functional specialization, that is threefold division of society. Harmony between classes, and harmony within the individual, as everyone is performing the role that they are most suited for. Based on this is his quote, state is man writ large. What he means by that is that whatever principle that is applicable to state will also be applicable to an individual, or man at a unit level. So justice, if it is applicable to state, will also be applicable to an individual or man. Decline of ideal state. Now Plato has created this ideal state. He's aware that this is the world of becoming. Things are constantly changing. Things are coming into life, and then they're decaying and dying. But he wants to preserve his ideal state. He wants to stop this decline of ideal state. So before that, he understands the stages which the states go through. So according to him, the ideal state would first decay into timocracy, that is rule of military class, where honor is above knowledge and private property is reinstituted, wealth is collected for leisure and warfare. Democracy will decay into oligarchy, rule of few rich, where greedy and they will people would be greedy, and they would amass wealth for its own sake. Oligarchy will actually decay into democracy, rule of many, breakdown of virtues, pursuing passions without any restraints. So here you see, in ideal state, people are pursuing what they are most suited for, but in democracy, people start having passions. They start doing what they like, which is bad according to Plato. And democracy would lead to despotism, that is absolute decline. It would be the rule of philosopher king in reverse, that is opposite of ideal state. And another important thing, if you notice here, is as the quality of social order declines, the quality of individuals also decline. This is an important point that I want you to note here. For Plato, how an individual is defined by how the state or the social order is. This is basically the understanding of the classical thought. But when you will come to modern Western political thought, you will see how the individual would define how the state is. So the same thing is getting reversed. For Plato, if he wants to fix how people are, if he doesn't want them to fight amongst themselves, and he doesn't want them to pursue their narrow self-interest, he is reimagining state or social order to create justice, so that people also become where they are following the virtues of justice. But in modern Western political thought, they realize that the individual is a certain way, and that is why the state is that way. That the individual defines how the state is going to be. State is nothing but a collection of individuals. But that is not the case with Plato or in the classical Western political thought. So this difference is very essential to know, so that when you have to trace the evolution, a question has come one of the PYQs were asking you to trace the evolution of some concept. So this understanding is key to that how they are uh, pursuing and how they are perceiving the relationship between state and individual. Now, if you look at evaluation and conclusion of Plato's theory, so Plato is first political philosopher whose theory acts as a normative yardstick. So Plato has written so expansively and comprehensively on all aspects, whether it is the state or the individual, and how each one should be, how an ideal state should be, how an ideal individual should be, that his theory has become a normative yardstick for the current political thinkers. It is a very comprehensive work touching all aspects of human life from state to individual. Feminists have applauded his work because he has probably the first one to opportunity for women to become rulers, frees them from child rearing responsibilities. That is an important point. It's something even the modern feminists are fighting against, that opportunities to women are uh, they are less in number, or they decline or are minimized because they have to uh, bear the responsibility of child rearing. Now, if however, if you look at the critique, if knowledge is virtue, how does philosopher king become corrupt after such an elaborate setup? This is a very valid question. When you put someone in charge who loves knowledge, who had that flash of knowledge hitting him or her, and they are still capable of turning corrupt, then it shows that rule of man cannot be trusted. In that regard, we will come to Aristotle, where he says that rule of law trumps rule of man. The myth of the metals. If virtue is identical with knowledge or truth, how can ideal state be held together on basis of a lie? When Plato is glorifying knowledge and truth so much, how can he create an ideal state that is bound together or held together by a lie? That is, that you're trying to tell almost all of your population a lie so that they perform the role that that they are most suited for, or they are being told that they are most suited for. Plato excludes guardians in producing class from achieving wisdom and becoming just individuals. Also, if they are performing a role because a lie has been told to them, or they are made to believe some lie, then you are actually stopping them from achieving wisdom and becoming just individuals. The greatest part of humankind lives in injustice, then the principle of justice is no longer universal. So, if an artisan is not convinced that he should be an artisan unless you tell him or her a lie, then one, they are not living in harmony with themselves. It is based on a lie. So, it is injustice done to them. And if it is injustice done at an individual level, then the principle of justice is no longer universal. The state is not man writ large. So then the state is having different principle, and the principle for individual is different. Followed from this, then political ethics is not personal ethics. That is what is should be followed in politics, or the ethics or the values that should be followed at political level are not being followed at personal level. Then there is Karl Popper's critique. He has called Plato an enemy of open society. We will be taking up this aspect in next video when we will be discussing PYQs from the topic of Plato. That's all. Thank you.